The boardroom smelled like old money and older resentment. Mahogany table, leather chairs that cost more than most people's cars. And at the head of it all sat Richard Hartwell, my father-in-law, looking at me like I was something he'd scraped off his Italian loafers. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up. My name is Thomas Bennett. I'm 63 years old now, and I've been married to Catherine Hartwell for 37 years. We live in a modest bungalow in North York, Toronto. 1,600 square feet, 2 bedrooms, the kind of house where you can hear the furnace kick on in winter and smell what the neighbors are cooking for dinner. Catherine and I met in 1985 at a community center fundraiser. She was volunteering, serving coffee with a smile that made the November cold feel like summer. I was 26, working 2 jobs, wearing a suit jacket with patches on the elbows. She didn't care. She saw something in me that her family never would. We married 6 months later. Small ceremony. Her parents didn't attend. Richard Hartwell made it clear that his daughter was marrying beneath her station, and he wanted nothing to do with it. Catherine chose me anyway. What Richard never knew, what Catherine herself didn't fully understand until much later, was that I wasn't just some working-class kid from Scarborough. My grandfather had been a silent partner in several mining ventures up north. When he died in 1983, I inherited everything. Mineral rights, land, investments that were just starting to pay off. By 1987, I was worth $43 million. By 1995, closer to $200 million. By 2010, just over $800 million. Today, if you want to be precise about it, I'm worth approximately $1.4 billion. And I never told anyone. Not my colleagues at the manufacturing plant where I worked for 30 years. Not my neighbors. Not even my daughter, Claire, until she turned 30. Especially not Richard Hartwell. See, Richard owned Hartwell Properties, a commercial real estate development company that built shopping centers and office towers across Ontario. He'd started it in 1972 with family money and decent business sense. By the time I married Catherine, he was worth maybe $12 million. Comfortable, respected in certain circles. What he didn't know was that starting in 1989, I'd been quietly buying shares in his company through a numbered corporation. 10% here, 15% there, always through lawyers and offshore trusts, always anonymous. By 2003, I owned 47% of Hartwell Properties. I was the largest shareholder. Every expansion Richard bragged about at family gatherings, every successful development he credited to his leadership, had been funded with capital I'd approved. Every time the company faced a cash flow problem, my investment firm quietly injected the necessary funds. Richard Hartwell thought he was a self-made man. He had no idea he'd been building his empire on my money for 2 decades. Why did I do it? Honestly, at first it was just good business. Hartwell Properties was undervalued and positioned for growth. But as the years went by and Richard's contempt for me never wavered, it became something else. A quiet insurance policy. A trump card I never intended to play. Until last month. It started with a phone call from Catherine. Her voice had that tight quality it got when she was trying not to cry. "Dad wants to have dinner," she said. "All of us. He says it's important." In 37 years of marriage, Richard had invited us to exactly 4 family dinners. Catherine's mother's funeral, Claire's graduation, Catherine's 50th birthday, where he spent the entire evening talking to other guests. And now this. Did he say why? I asked. He mentioned something about the company. And Claire, our daughter Claire, was 35, unmarried, working as a social worker in Regent Park. She'd gotten her values from her mother, thank God. She lived in a small apartment, drove a 10-year-old Honda, and spent most of her salary helping clients who couldn't afford basic necessities. Richard had always been disappointed in her. Not wealthy enough, not ambitious enough, not interested in the family business. When? I asked Catherine. Saturday, 7 o'clock. His house in Rosedale. I'd been to Richard's house maybe a dozen times in 37 years. Each visit felt like a test I was designed to fail. The house itself was a monument to excess. 6,000 square feet. Wine cellar. Home theater. A garage that held 3 cars worth more than our entire home. We'll go, I told Catherine. Whatever this is about, we'll face it together. That Saturday, I put on my best suit. It was 10 years old, bought on sale at a discount store, but it fit well, and I kept it pressed. Catherine wore a simple blue dress. We drove our 2015 Toyota Corolla through the November drizzle, past the mansions of Rosedale, and pulled up to Richard's circular driveway, where a Tesla and a Mercedes already sat. The Mercedes belonged to Catherine's brother, Marcus, 42 years old, VP of Sales at Hartwell Properties, living off Daddy's money and calling it entrepreneurship. We rang the doorbell. A housekeeper I'd never seen before answered and led us to the formal dining room. The table could seat 12, but tonight there were only 6 place settings. Richard at the head, naturally. His wife Patricia to his right, Marcus across from her, and 3 empty seats at the far end for the disappointments. "Catherine," Richard said, standing. He was 71 now, still straight-backed and imperious. Silver hair, custom suit, a Rolex that cost more than most people's cars. "You look well." He didn't acknowledge me at all. 37 years, and he still couldn't bring himself to shake my hand. Catherine kissed her father's cheek. I nodded politely and took my seat at the far end of the table. The seating arrangement said everything about where we ranked in this family. "Where's Claire?" Patricia asked. She'd always been kinder than her husband, though not kind enough to ever stand up to him. "She's coming," Catherine said. "She had a client emergency. She should be here soon." Marcus checked his Patek Philippe. Typical. Some people don't understand the value of other people's time. I bit my tongue. Marcus had never worked a real day in his life. Every position he'd ever held had been handed to him by his father. Every sale he'd ever made had been set up by Richard's connections. The housekeeper brought out the first course. French onion soup, the kind of meal designed to remind you that you're in the presence of people who consider themselves cultured. We ate in silence for a few minutes. Then Claire arrived, apologetic and slightly out of breath. She'd come straight from work, still wearing her practical clothes, and carrying her oversized bag full of case files. "Sorry I'm late," she said, kissing her mother's cheek and squeezing my shoulder as she passed. She didn't apologize to Richard. That was my girl. "Now that we're all here," Richard said, setting down his soup spoon with precise deliberation, "I'll get to the point. I'm 71 years old. I've built Hartwell Properties from nothing into one of the most successful commercial real estate firms in Ontario. But I'm not going to live forever." He paused for effect. Marcus leaned forward eagerly. Catherine's hand found mine under the table. "I've decided it's time to formalize the succession plan. Marcus will take over as CEO when I retire next year. The transition has already begun." Marcus tried to look humble and failed completely. "I'm honored, Dad. I won't let you down. I know you won't." Richard turned his attention to Catherine and Claire. "Of course, this affects both of you as well. Patricia and I have updated our estate plans. When we're gone, Marcus will inherit controlling interest in the company. Catherine, you'll receive a small percentage of shares, perhaps 5%. I felt Catherine stiffen beside me. 5%. After a lifetime of being Richard's daughter, that's what she was worth to him. "And Claire," Richard continued, "you'll receive a cash settlement, $250,000. I considered making it contingent on you changing careers, but your mother convinced me that would be cruel." Claire's face was carefully neutral. How generous. Richard missed the sarcasm entirely. "I've also made arrangements for Catherine's financial security. Thomas, I assume you've been setting aside money for retirement?" It was the first time he'd addressed me directly all evening. "We're comfortable," I said quietly. "Comfortable," Richard repeated, as if the word tasted bad. "Well, I've taken the liberty of arranging a position for you at Hartwell Properties. Entry-level facilities management, $35,000 a year. It's not much, but at your age, you should be grateful for any employment. The pension benefits are decent." The table went silent. Even Marcus looked uncomfortable. Catherine's voice was sharp. "Dad, Thomas doesn't need—" "It's fine," I said, squeezing her hand. "Let him finish." Richard looked pleased. He thought he'd won something. "The position starts in January. You'll report to Marcus. I expect punctuality and a strong work ethic. Think you can manage that?" 37 years. 37 years of this man's contempt. Of walking into rooms and watching him turn away. Of listening to him explain to dinner guests that his daughter had married a factory worker, as if I was some kind of shameful secret. I'd never wanted to do this. Never wanted to prove anything to him. But as I sat there, watching him offer me scraps from his table like I should be grateful, Something inside me shifted. "That's very thoughtful," I said, "but I'll have to decline." Richard's eyebrows rose. "Excuse me? I'm not interested in the position." "Not interested?" Richard laughed. "Thomas, you're 63 years old. You worked in a factory for 30 years. You have no education, no skills that translate to the modern economy. I'm offering you a lifeline here. I appreciate that. But I'm quite comfortable with my current situation." Marcus jumped in. "Tom, maybe you don't understand. This is a real opportunity. 35K might not sound like much, but with benefits and the pension plan—" "I understand perfectly," I said. "I'm just not interested." Richard's face was turning red. "Not interested. Do you have any idea how many men your age would kill for this opportunity? You're being offered a chance to finally contribute something to this family instead of being a constant burden on my daughter." "Richard, stop it," Patricia said quietly. "No, he needs to hear this. 37 years, Thomas. 37 years of watching you drag Catherine down to your level, living in that tiny house, driving that embarrassing car, never giving her the life she deserved. And now, when I'm offering you a chance to finally make something of yourself, you're too proud to accept it?" Catherine stood up. "Dad, that's enough. We're leaving." "Sit down, Catherine. This doesn't concern you." "Doesn't concern me? You just insulted my husband, the man I've loved for 37 years. The man who's been more of a father to Claire than you ever were. A father? He couldn't even provide for her properly. Do you know what the other partners at my firm say when they ask about my son-in-law? They laugh. They actually laugh when I tell them you married a factory worker." I stood up slowly. The dining room had gotten very quiet. Even the housekeeper had stopped moving. "Richard," I said, "I think there's been a misunderstanding. Several misunderstandings, actually, and it's time we cleared them up." "What are you talking about?" I pulled out my phone, opened my email, found the message I'd prepared that morning after Catherine told me what this dinner was really about. "I'm talking about Hartwell Properties. Your company. The empire you built from nothing. What about it?" "Well, that's not exactly accurate, is it? You didn't build it from nothing. You built it with considerable help from silent investors, including your largest shareholder." Richard waved dismissively. "The company has several institutional investors. That's standard practice for any successful business." "True. But one investor holds more shares than all the others combined, 47%, to be exact. I'm curious, Richard. Have you ever wondered who that investor is?" For the first time, uncertainty flickered across his face. "That information is confidential, protected by privacy agreements." "It is, but I can tell you who it is." "Would you like to know?" Marcus laughed nervously. "Tom, what are you doing? You're embarrassing yourself." I turned my phone toward Richard, showed him the email on the screen. It was from my lawyer, sent to Richard's corporate email address approximately 30 seconds ago. The subject line read, "Notice of Beneficial Ownership Disclosure." Richard's face went pale as he read. His hand actually trembled as he reached for his own phone. "What is this?" he whispered. "That's a formal disclosure of beneficial ownership. As of this morning, Bennett Holdings Limited has filed the necessary paperwork with the Ontario Securities Commission to reveal its ownership stake in Hartwell Properties. Bennett Holdings owns 47% of your company, Richard. I am Bennett Holdings." The silence that followed was absolute. Even the sound of the November rain against the windows seemed to stop. "That's impossible," Richard said. "It's not. I've been your largest shareholder since 2003. Before that, I held smaller positions going back to 1,989. Every major expansion you've undertaken in the last 20 years was funded with capital I approved. Every time the company faced a cash flow crisis, my investment firm injected the necessary funds. The development in Markham in 2007, the office tower in Mississauga in 2012, the shopping center in Burlington last year, all of it funded with my money." Marcus grabbed his father's phone, read the email himself. "This is some kind of fraud. Tom doesn't have this kind of money. It's impossible." "Is it?" I pulled up another document on my phone. My most recent financial statement. Net worth, $1.4 billion. This is my portfolio, Marcus. Diversified investments across mining, real estate, technology, and renewable energy. Hartwell Properties represents approximately 3% of my total holdings. Catherine was staring at me, not with anger, but with something like wonder. "Thomas, why didn't you ever tell me?" "Because it didn't matter. Money doesn't change who we are, Catherine. We were happy in our little house. We raised a wonderful daughter. We had everything we needed. But you let my father, she couldn't finish the sentence. I let your father think what he wanted to think. His opinion of me was never based on reality. It was based on his own prejudices. Nothing I said would have changed that. Richard found his voice again. This is a trick. Some kind of elaborate fraud. I would have known if you were my primary shareholder. Would you? When's the last time you actually looked at your shareholder registry? The filings are public record, Richard. They've been there for years. You just never bothered to check because you assumed someone like me could never be someone like that. I stood up, buttoned my suit jacket. The email you just received includes an invitation to an emergency board meeting tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. As the largest shareholder, I'm calling for a vote on the current leadership structure. Given the company's recent performance issues and the concerns several board members have expressed privately about nepotistic hiring practices, I expect the vote will not go in your favor. You can't do this, Marcus said. Dad built this company. He built it with my money. And he's been making increasingly poor decisions. The Oakville development that's 6 months behind schedule and $3 million over budget. The disastrous expansion into the Alberta market. The sexual harassment lawsuits from 3 former female employees that the company settled quietly. Should I go on? Richard's face had gone from red to gray. You bastard. I gave you a chance tonight. A job. A way to finally contribute to this family. And this is how you repay me? Repay you? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Richard, I don't owe you anything. You've spent 37 years making it clear that I wasn't good enough for your daughter, that I was an embarrassment, a burden. Well, here's the truth. I've been subsidizing your lifestyle for 2 decades. That Tesla in your driveway, paid for with dividends from my investment. This house, the mortgage was refinanced in 2015 with a loan I approved. Your country club membership, your winter vacations in the Caribbean, all funded by the profits from a company I own nearly half of. Patricia had her hand over her mouth. Catherine was crying quietly. Claire looked like she wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. Marcus stood up. We'll fight this. We'll take you to court. You'll what, Marcus? Sue me for being a successful investor? Challenge my ownership in a court of law where every detail of how I acquired those shares will be examined and found to be completely legal? Go ahead. I have very good lawyers. I turned to Catherine. I'm sorry you had to learn about this tonight. I wanted to tell you so many times, but it never seemed important. We were happy. We had each other. The money was just numbers in an account. She wiped her eyes. You should have told me. I know, but would you have married me if you'd known I was wealthy? Of course I would have. Would you have stayed with me when your father cut you off? When he made it clear that choosing me meant losing your family? Would you have believed that I loved you for you, and not because you were Richard Hartwell's daughter? She was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. You're right. I needed to choose you without that complication. I needed to know that we were building our life together, not living off your money. I turned back to Richard. As for your offer of a job, I'll decline. But I do have a counteroffer for you. Tomorrow morning, at the board meeting, I'll be proposing several changes to the company's leadership structure. Marcus will be removed as VP of Sales, pending a comprehensive review of his actual sales performance versus the sales attributed to him. You'll be required to step down as CEO and accept a consulting role with significantly reduced authority. This is my company, Richard said. No, it's our company. And I've been a silent partner long enough. But here's my offer. Resign gracefully tomorrow. Accept the consulting position. Make a public statement about wanting to spend more time with family. Do all of that, and I'll ensure you retain a generous salary and benefits package. Refuse, and the board will vote you out anyway, but with considerably less grace. Why are you doing this? Patricia asked. After all these years, why now? I looked at Catherine, at Claire, at the 2 women who had loved me without knowing about the money, who had seen something in me that Richard never could. Because tonight, Richard made it clear that nothing would ever change. He would always see me as less than, as someone to be pitied and condescended to. And more importantly, he made it clear that he saw his own daughter the same way. 5%, Catherine. After everything you've done, after all the years you stood by him, that's what you're worth to him. I walked to the door. Catherine and Claire followed. Behind us, Richard was saying something, but I wasn't listening anymore. In the car, driving back through the rain-slicked streets of Rosedale toward our small house in North York, Catherine finally spoke. $1.4 billion, give or take. Our house is worth maybe 500,000. It's worth a lot more than that to me. She laughed, and then she was crying again, and then she was laughing and crying at the same time. You really never cared about the money, did you? The money was useful. It gave us security. It meant I could help people quietly when they needed it. But it was never what mattered. What mattered? You, Claire. The life we built. The fact that when you looked at me, you saw who I really was. Not the factory worker your father saw. Not the billionaire I could have been. Just me. Claire spoke from the back seat. So what happens now? Now we see if your grandfather has any sense left. My guess is he'll resign. Marcus will probably try to fight it, but he doesn't have any actual leverage. The board will vote for new leadership, and I'll recommend someone qualified who isn't a family member. The company will be fine. And us? We go home. Tomorrow, I'll make some eggs for breakfast. Your mother will read the Sunday paper. Maybe we'll go for a walk if the rain stops. Same as always, with $1.4 billion. The money doesn't change anything that matters, Claire. But I was wrong about that. The money changed one thing. The next morning, before the board meeting, my phone rang. It was Richard. I'll resign, he said. His voice sounded old. Defeated. I'll make the statement you want. But I need to ask you something. What? Why did you stay silent all these years? If you wanted revenge, you could have destroyed me a dozen times over. Why wait until now? I thought about that for a moment. Because it was never about revenge, Richard. It was about protecting the people I love. As long as you were just being rude to me, I could ignore it. But last night, you showed Catherine exactly how little she matters to you. You did the same to Claire. That's when silence stopped being an option. I never meant to hurt them. I know. But you did, and that's something you'll have to live with. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, for what it's worth, I was wrong about you. All these years, I was wrong. Yes, I said. You were. He hung up. The board meeting happened as planned. Richard resigned with a carefully worded statement about wanting to focus on family and personal interests. Marcus was asked to take a leave of absence pending review. A professional CEO with no family connections was brought in. Hartwell Properties continued to thrive. Better than before, actually, without the nepotism and poor decisions that had been holding it back. Catherine and I still live in our small house in North York. We still drive the Corolla. But now, Catherine volunteers at the community center where we met, and she started a scholarship fund for young women from working-class families. Claire opened a non-profit, providing legal and social services to Toronto's homeless population. The money funds it all, quietly, without fanfare. Richard and I reached an understanding of sorts. We're not close, probably never will be, but he's been better to Catherine, more present with Claire. That's all I really wanted. Sometimes people ask me why I lived so simply when I had so much money. They don't understand that the simple life was the point. The money was just a tool, a way to ensure security and help others. But the real wealth was always the life Catherine and I built together. The Sunday morning breakfasts, the walks in the rain, the quiet evenings reading beside each other. Richard Hartwell spent his whole life chasing status and recognition. He built an empire, but he lost his daughter's respect in the process. He had everything money could buy, but he didn't understand that the most valuable things can't be purchased. I learned that lesson a long time ago, in a community center on a November evening, from a woman serving coffee with a smile that made winter feel like summer. Some people measure wealth in dollars. Others measure it in the moments that matter. I've always known which one I'd rather be rich in, and that's a choice that has nothing to do with money at all.